Stupid bitch.
You can't make a deal with a darky. Shut up.
Burn the witch.
You have no soul.
In terms of the concept for every season, Ryan really comes in with a strong idea of what the concept should be. It's usually something even just simple, like an insane asylum or witches. The first season, haunted house. And so you come in sort of with that idea.
We're a dying breed, Zoe.
I think the main themes of all of the seasons of American Horror Story, which is what I love about them so much, is about the disenfranchised and about reclaiming your own power and finding the power within yourself.
There are many things that have been shown in the season as it's gone into details of who the people are that are part of this coven. So it's about a group and all the things that a group means.
You know, there's obviously tremendous conflict is an understatement. You know, the fact that many of us have tried to kill one another or whatever.
Yeah. Did that hurt? No. Okay, good. Okay.
One of the main themes this season in Coven is the idea of survival. There's all these bullseye targets on you and everyone wants you dead and you don't even know who your enemies are.
I think some of the themes that we're addressing are fertility, celebrity, loyalty, feminism, ageism. Women, we have so many issues that we're concerned about, and I think we managed to hit upon many, if not most of them.
The history of witches has always been a fear of women, a fear of the power of women, the fear patriarchal societies have about not being able to control things they don't understand, wanting to keep them down.
But there's also a theme about youth and regeneration, passing things on from one generation to the next generation.
Don't be afraid, use it. Kill me for the sake of the coven.
Fiona's definitely not one to follow the rules and how she's leading this coven.
She has really let her duties be cast aside. Instead, she's followed a very self-centered path of pleasure.
I mean, I could torment myself over the selfish detours I've taken, but what good would it do now?
Fiona, Jessica Lange, is hideously amoral and completely narcissistic and yet utterly sympathetic at the same time. That is not easy to do, and it isn't done very often in television or in film.
My entire teaching philosophy has been an abject failure.
She's a by-the-book kind of gal, and she's a very good person. She believes in rules, and she's the polar opposite of her mother.
I like a witch who knows how to fight. You've done this coven a great service.
She wants to be loyal to something. She found this family, kind of, and she has a purpose now. She wants to do something good. It's like season 1 all over again. Dead bodies. Whereas someone maybe like Fiona or Madison are very self-absorbed.
A bubblehead with crotchless panties. And you're a dried up old Hot Pocket, but I don't judge.
I was just like, this is a dream role because it's fun, it's also dramatic, and it's kind of like everything rolled into one.
So technically, I'm part of your tribe.
Is this where we all sing Kumbaya?
Bitch, I will eat you.
Hey.
I don't think Queenie ever felt like she fit in to the Robichaux Academy. She thinks of being a witch, especially a Salem witch, is something very different than what she is.
I had a Stevie Nicks obsession, and I just sort of turned the dial up on it. I just kind of went full throttle.
Who are you?
When I turned around and said, "You must be Misty, I'm Stevie Nicks," and she fainted, I was really shocked. That was such a real faint. And then Jessica Lange steps over her and comes up to me and gives me a kiss and says, "You owe me $5. And I'm like, I'm in it. And it's really been great. Good luck, girls.
I think Kyle is completely different from Kit and Tate, especially Frank and Kyle. Is it okay if I call him Frank and Kyle? He's just completely lost and scared and alone and doesn't know what's going on.
I don't want to hurt you.
I'll be okay. Zoe's first power, I don't think it's something she's very enthusiastic about or she would consider special.
And Zoe's a very sensitive, kind, sweet girl who just happens to have a killer vagina. Killer vagina's no good. Not good. Yeah, well, she's got a witchy killer vagina, which is different than a regular killer vagina, I guess.
There's a lot of walking around my house doing like this and like seeing what my hand motion was gonna be, because on the day you have to have your witch motion that you do, and I have a few, so that was fun to get to play with.
I would do anything Ryan Murphy asked me to do at any time whatsoever, as clearly evident with what he's had me do. You know, this year gouging my own eyes out with some garden shears, you know, it's just all in a day's work.
Are you a witch or something? Why? Well, I was hoping you were. Then maybe you'd know how to kill me.
Well, I certainly can't say they don't write good parts for women anymore.
Ryan, one of the things he does so uniquely is write for women and write for so many women.
Complicated women and strong women and weak women and just all kinds of women. There's something for everybody. When you watch the show, you think, gosh, there's a character that everyone can relate to on some level.
You're gonna make a show about women, you're gonna write great female parts, then you want great people to play them. And I think that there are people like Kathy Bates and Angela Bassett, and obviously Jessica, that's some serious acting chops.
I'm sorry for your loss. You want a bite?
You know, it tickles you to be writing those scenes. You know you're writing for those actresses, you know?
Just doing your entrance and your exit. So long.
And of course, I love working with my friend Jessie, and she and I have done several movies together, and we've gone out to dinner a few times here, and it's been great.
Y'all have a good time. Bye, honey.
I love you.
I love you too. See you later.
Where's my family? Return them to me.
They never left. You'd never see this, you know, group of women who are such individually are just so phenomenal. Their talents are so amazing on display and together. It really ups your game.
Don't think that they didn't suffer, because they did greatly.
Marie Laveau and Madame Lalaurie are two incredibly famous New Orleans characters.
I'll finish this one myself.
We do need to cast someone amazing for the role of Marie Laveau, who's a real character, and she's the voodoo queen, and we wanted somebody who could be in the same room and be the enemy of Jessica Lange and be able to, frankly, not get her butt kicked by her.
Take your skinny ass and that filthy thing and get out.
That character she's playing is coming from a place in her that really is that. I mean, she has that strength and that charisma and that presence.
Beautiful.
She's able to bring back from the dead, you know, zombies. She's also able to, you know, if a woman is having trouble, you know, with fertility issues. And she can also cook up a mean pot of gumbo. But when injustice has occurred, she, you know, has to call on some, you know, not so nice things to occur.
We got some business to attend to.
What we have here is the Minotaur that she's seen in episodes 1, 2, and 3 of American Horror Story, played by Amir Baraka. At first we put a huge cowling on his neck to make his neck look bigger, and then this is more of a mask that we kind of slip over his head. But if you want to go all the way open, it's this.
Our special effects makeup team is unbelievably good, and we're so lucky to have them. To see something that's as far out as a Minotaur, who was a tortured human being and is now a vengeful mythical creature, and to have it actually come to life. Do you have a better job than that? Because I don't.
And Lalaurie is also this, like, you know, when you go down there, if you want to go on any of the tours of the French Quarter, you have to go by the Lalaurie Mansion, because the stories that were told about this woman are so compelling, especially to a horror fan, because they're so awful, they're so unbelievable, that you think it almost doesn't feel like it's real.
I think I'm gonna like it here.
It's a character that I've really been able to throw myself into with abandon and with great joy.
But let's start with your toes.
I know that sounds strange to say about someone as horrendous as her, but I mean, ever since we're little kids, who wouldn't want to play the scary monster?
You think we could be true friends?
The bulk of my scenes are with Kathy, and she's sort of my favorite lady ever. I just love sitting across from her in a scene and just watching her. It's almost like acting school.
I've enjoyed working with Gabourey Sidibe, I was crossing my fingers that I would get a chance to work with her, and my dream came true.
Reach, the saga of an American family. You are gonna watch all 8 hours of it.
Oh, God. It's tragic. Delphine is not able to take that final step and rehabilitate herself and realize that she's been a fool.
It's called repentance.
Oh, repentance my ass.
I do hope that we've been able to highlight in our own way the evils of racism, the stupidity of racism. I hope I've accomplished that.
I think the genius of Ryan's creation is that there are different levels of horror and different levels of being scared. And each season seems to tap into a different kind of terror.
I'm told it starts as a tingle in the cooch.
We have a tingle in the cooch. Start with a tingle in the cooch.
I think what's awesome about this season is that there's a lot of humor involved.
Ben.
Never speak it aloud.
Is that powerful?
You have no idea.
I've always found that there is this wonderful dark humor in American Horror Story, even from season 1, sort of sprinkled in there. It's definitely the most this season.
Bravo, Delphine! Magnifique!
This was the least scary season of all, I think. And although I loved it very much and had a great time doing it, my preference is the darker stuff.
I think people are embracing Coven as even more so than the first 2 seasons because it's a little more accessible. As happy as I was, and I think we all were with Asylum and what we created in Asylum, it was a really grim show.
She left the melon border in there. She's growing old and forgetful.
I love American Horror Story because over the years you get to create sort of meta story arcs. And so we have the great idea of Thaisa and Evan being lovers again. We get to see Jessica and Sarah Paulson in a different relationship every season. This one they're playing mother and daughter. I was obsessed with Jessica in season 1 and we had a relationship, and this year, I'm not sure we had the same kind of relationship, but we're definitely tied, and I love it.
Girls, you may begin.
What's fun about every season of the show is that we never know exactly where the story is going along with the audience. So we come up with things that surprise ourselves. I mean, right up until the very last episode, we were arguing over who the next Supreme should be.
It's almost like juggling balls. So when you say it might be Madison, you're immediately saying, but then Queenie has these powers and Nan has these powers. So you're almost giving equal weight to each of the characters at any given time, that any one of them could be the next Supreme.
And we argue passionately about who we think should be the next Supreme and why. And we take strong positions on things. And oftentimes we don't agree. It just ends up being, okay, somebody in charge has to say, this is how it's gonna be.
You think I could be the next Supreme? I'd stake your life on it.
I did not know I was going to be the next Supreme until Ryan Murphy called me about a week before Christmas to say, lady, I want to tell you you're the Supreme. And I was like, wait, what? It was never going to be Thaisa, even though I think everyone thought that, but on a show like American Horror Story, if they're leading you in one direction, odds are it's probably not that. And I know that Ryan loves an underdog, and so I thought it might be Nan or Queenie, but Cordelia was an underdog too, so.
Behold, the one true Supreme.
Although I did notice on Twitter that a lot of fans were pointing out that the Lady of the Seven Powers is the image that flashes on screen when my name appears in the opening credits. And it had been like that from the beginning, which was a weird kind of like, ooh.
To me, the whole season is about mothers and daughters. There's that great scene at the end with Jessica and Sarah, which really kind of says it all about what that relationship was and how even the worst mother-daughter relationship is the most important relationship in both those people's lives.
You were the monster in every one of my closets.
My favorite moment was my scene with Jessica Lange in the finale episode.
I'm crying for the girl in me who dies when you die.
Then kill them both right now.
It felt like it had the full weight and the gravitas and the breadth of everything that had happened between our characters for the entire season.
Women who identify as witches are born as such. And their abilities, which we call powers, are part of who they are.
In many ways, the journey of Cordelia, the journey of the show, is these people accepting really who they are. And the Coven is trying to be something it isn't, which is trying to be something shameful, something that can't be exposed to the world. As soon as they realize, like, no, that's not who we are. Actually, who we are people out here. We're members of this society, we're members of this culture, we're just different. Then a great relief comes to them. And they see that the world is ready to accept them.
I know together we can do more than survive. It's our time to thrive.
New Orleans we chose because it's the most unique American city. It's sexy and dangerous and beautiful and has an amazing history, and it has this cultural hodgepodge. I just totally fell in love with it and was very excited to shoot that show down there.
I'm the executive director of the Herman Grema and the Gallier Historic Houses. So many wonderful adjectives popped to mind when describing the architecture of New Orleans. Of course, it's lovely, ethereal, historic, but it's also old and dusty and a little bit creaky. We were so excited to learn that American Horror Story Coven was going to be in New Orleans, and we were going to host them for the season. Because we do have that sense of history, which I think is very much in keeping with the spirit of the show.
Bring her! Bring her!
New Orleans as a city is very visually inspiring because of the diversity of the architecture. When you see the locations that we've shot and the way that we've shot them, that brings the visual excitement to the show.
I love that we are, out of the studio and actually in the city of New Orleans. The city itself is a character.
Shooting in New Orleans was probably one of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had. It's a beautiful, beautiful city with a lot of history and a lot of alcohol.
Cheers.
Coming into New Orleans is sort of immersing ourselves in the detail and the visual sense and the tone. It's beautiful, it's spooky.
There's a sultriness to it. The weather has a lot to do with it. The air is very evocative of saxophones in the night, and there's such an incredible influence with food and music that all your senses are touched.
Each one of you has a unique gift, but that's not nearly enough to be a real witch.
The architecture is beautiful and in some cases much lighter. It's a very feminine city, interestingly, which really intersects nicely with the fact that our primary cast is female.
One of my favorite things of shooting in New Orleans is when we shoot uptown in the Garden District in the real authentic Southern homes and you see the wraparound balconies, everything is so beautiful. I think the Robichaux house is gorgeous.
Hello? I think the main inspiration for the whole season was an influence that Ryan first presented to Mark, which was that he wanted something light because last year was so dark. Ryan had said one of his notes was glacial. So we really took that to the extreme.
That set was inspired by Greco-Roman revival mansions in the Garden District, but it is not a copy of anything. I love the central staircase. One of my favorite spaces I've ever designed. Based on a number of influences with our own spin on it. There are a few things we've done there, I'm not going to say what, that aren't necessarily anything that I've ever seen in any antebellum mansion anywhere, but they suit the tone. That room gets at a lot of what it is in working with Ryan. He loves things that are stylish and beautiful. On the surface level, you look at it and you kind of takes your breath away. You go, this is a beautiful room. And yet, there's always a tension. That room can also look very spooky and odd and slightly alienating, and that Ryan always encourages.
Brian Murphy, he has a certain vision of the show that we all want to maintain and develop, and he has a very specific vision of New Orleans. So there have been many interesting locations that we have shot.
The history of New Orleans is really fascinating, and there are so many unique things, like the above-ground cemeteries, the above-ground tombs.
In New Orleans, life and death seem very close together. We have always had a relationship with our cemeteries. It's a more immediate relationship because our water table here is so high that we can't bury people below the ground. So we have them in above-ground tombs.
How the hell are we gonna get her out of there?
With a jackhammer if we have to.
I'm gonna go find a maintenance man. They're above ground, and that takes a lot of the scary out of it for me. I think it's beautiful and becomes a monument instead of being put in the ground, which for me and my psyche is completely different.
The cemetery we chose for the zombie attack is one of the most beautiful and strange cemeteries I've seen and I've known. It was built on an old Indian burial ground, so long before the local residents of this small town began to bury their dead there, the Indians who had originally occupied the land buried their dead there.
Come on, buddy. Hey.
Some of them actually were broken into and cracked, and you could like see into them and see like bones of like real people.
It was just a very spooky thing to be shooting a show, and then to turn and look and see someone's pelvis, and just thinking how insane it was to see their rib cage and their femurs. But to see something like that was scary and also kind of fascinating.
I'd say, you know, almost all of New Orleans is rumored to have a voodoo curse, and many locations also.
You go to Marie Laveau's cemetery, people coming, making their wishes, even today, leaving coins, leaving money, making 3 X's on her tombs, making their wish. If your wish comes true, you must return and offer a gift. That's still living and breathing. They've not been forgotten.
The New Orleans Preservation Foundation is proud to present the haunted home tour of the notorious Madame Lalaurie.
Some of our locations are fractured. We have interiors on a soundstage, we have exteriors in the real location. At this particular location, we've married the facade of one building to the interior of another to create Madame Lalaurie's house.
My dear, guests have been asking after you.
The interior of the Herman Grima house was the interior of Madame Lalaurie's house. The exterior was actually the exterior of our sister museum, the Gallier House on Royal Street, which is just 2 doors down from the actual Lalaurie mansion.
This historical site was nothing but a house of lies before I came back.
I've spent most of my time off stage at the Herman Grima house, and one of the things that I found just stunning about it were the paintings that are there. There's one really beautiful one over the fireplace of a lady with a blue dress on. I understand from costumes that they really studied those paintings in terms of how to recreate the 1830s look.
But I wonder if you're brave enough to visit my chamber of horrors.
The 2 museums, the Herman Grima and the Gallier, represent the best of 19th century life. One of the early episodes had a dance, a party, which was of course in our parlor, the front parlor downstairs on the 1st floor. Here was Madame Lalaurie's dressing room, where she's looking into the mirror, and the crew was especially respectful. There were so many different things that might have been damaged by blood.
So this is Cornrow City in our story. This is Marie Laveau's salon and voodoo parlor. This is in the neighborhood of Tremaine. This is the exact right neighborhood for this.
My favorite location is Cornrow City, and was owned by a woman of color who was an independent businesswoman at that time. It's interesting that art is reflecting art. So
Earl and I decided to take a chance, give our son the best opportunity.
So this is Marie Laveau's actual voodoo chamber. And this is where she does all of her voodoo business.
Found this cool 1900s chair that Mark said, oh, that would be great to embellish.
There's just something about the way Angela plays the character. She's so regal and funny and great. We wanted something a bit more formal. So starting with this European piece, essentially European-inspired piece, and then adding in this whole, Caribbean, African voodoo world. The contrast is really kind of wonderful, because it's also kind of what New Orleans is about. In a way, this chair kind of puts it all together.
When I plant a fat-ass cracker bitch, I expect her to stay planted.
We've had scenes outdoors in swamps with alligators. You know, that only happens in New Orleans.
I think so much of this town comes from the swamps. Most of New Orleans was a swamp. So you really don't have to go very far from New Orleans to find yourself once again in the swamp.
How can we help you, young lady?
We are in New Sarpy, Louisiana, shooting at the swamp.
The swamp's a natural location in Louisiana to shoot in because this is something that we can't really get at Paramount or back in Los Angeles. I mean, you could see this as like kind of nowhere else is like this.
The way you keep the cast and crew safe from the alligators, of course, is to keep them at a minimum distance. Roughly 3 feet, you should be all right. He's getting a little antsy. He wants to go. He's camera shy. They do have the strongest bite in the animal kingdom. Nothing bites harder than an alligator except a larger alligator.
Like art is created in a way in a place like that when you're not on a set designed to look like a swamp. You're in the swamp. There's an urgency about it that comes up.
And of course we were doing something that one really doesn't want to do too often, which was shoot the swamps in August. It is extraordinarily hot.
I like it. It's hot, and there's lots of things to watch out for, but I really like that.
Of course, everybody wanted to see an alligator or a snake, and of course, there were snakes, and once they did see them, they went, oh my God!
So what do we got here, brother?
It's cottonmouth, known as a water moccasin.
Where do we find this little jewel at?
Right behind the set, about 10, 20 feet away from everybody.
And that's a genuine moccasin, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So ruin your day. This is why they got us out here. Keep these guys off the set.
Shooting in New Orleans and setting the show in New Orleans gave it a whole new feel and a whole new energy. And it really, I think, came through on screen.
There were such wonderful things about that city, and you can also feel the gravity of all that has transpired in that city. And I think it lent itself very well to telling our story.
The people I've talked to have been overwhelmingly positive about, how we show New Orleans. And I'm like, great, okay, so we have zombies running around your street and people with chainsaws sawing them in half and people hanging from the rafters and slaves being tortured. And they say, yeah, but it's part of our history that we don't deny.
New Orleans is such a special place. So I'm glad that everyone who watched American Horror Story could get a little sense of that, because we did really embrace everyone who worked on American Horror Story Coven as one of us.
Oh, hi. Welcome to American Horror Story.
Begin.
Halloween, it's like the scariest time of the year and everyone's so excited for scary stuff. And Halloween is like, I don't know, it's our Mardi Gras.
Yeah, that's it.
It's part of the fun. I think people expect it as part of a signature of what we do in the show.
One of the scariest parts this season for me, like in real life while shooting, was during the Halloween episodes, during the zombie part, Zoe comes out and the zombies start banging on the door. And it went on for a while. They just let it go for like 2-3 minutes, rolling the camera, and I was literally terrified. I was like, as soon as they opened the door, I was like, hey guys, that was good. That was a good take.
Well, the Halloween episodes have always been strong for American Horror Story because we have the excuse of the holiday to just go hog wild on stuff.
And action.
Today's scene, I had a couple of visitors, Butter, the python, and I guess his little friend, the river snake. And I've never worked with snakes before, but in this scene, I used them for the spell.
That thing was hissing. Oh, you got it.
It's getting dark. You know what that means?
Showtime for the zombies.
They're coming in! What the hell is that?
Why zombies? Zombies are terrifying and they're awesome.
Action! Tonight we have a zombie fiesta in the barn where we have the first appearance of our zombies, which are really more accurately described as Marie Laveau's army of the undead. Our zombies aren't hungry for human flesh, they're being commanded by Marie Laveau.
These were all people that were killed and put into this special spot to, be her little zombie army. They were all being punished in some way for their sins.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go, guys. They're swaying.
Action.
Okay, you've had your fun. You spooked a house full of girls. Time to go.
I think the whole Halloween experience in American Horror Story 3rd season, it's like an extravaganza. There's so much going on. It's just the violence and everything is on top of each other. Everything is kind of like one-upping everything else. So it's like all the set pieces are kind of building to a kind of climax that I think even for this show, kind of big and extravagant and quite scary.
I love the fact that we have zombies. I think it taps into the zeitgeist. It pokes gentle fun at some other network that does a show about zombies. I can't remember the name. But I think that that's fantastic. And our zombies are a little different. And they seem to have a real purpose. They are an army. They're not a disparate ragtag group of people. They are an army on a mission.
What we like to do with our zombies is give them individual personalities. So each one of them we like to have a real story with. Because to me, that's the real tragedy of the living dead is when they were living.
Poor kid.
It was extremely emotional for me as an actor to imagine someone, and we all have that someone. Imagine having that person that you buried come back to life. What would you do?
What have I done to you?
That's what that episode was about for me. From Delphine's point of view, wanting there to be some forgiveness. Because all those years she spent in the ground, all she could see was her daughter's faces, like on an endless loop. That's all she could see.
Oh shit. It was a really, really fun episode. It was really fun to see all that zombie makeup. I got to do like 3 stunts in a row. When the zombie busts through the door, I'm running backwards and I take a scissor and I stab myself. That doesn't kill the zombie, and so I throw a bottle into a mirror and then I take it and I slash my own neck. That doesn't work.
You get skewered.
And then Delphine sort of superheroes over the bed and stabs her own daughter. Yeah, a lot of things happened.
Ready? Pretty darn nice, I would say.
Nice.
One of the main things with the zombies is that they're not zombies that you know as, the sort of brain-eating zombies, They're voodoo zombies. They're being controlled by Marie Laveau, and they do her bidding. And we're playing with the idea that each one is distinct in its behavior, how it moves, and also like some echo of what it once was. I see how they move on their own, how they, what their body is like, and how we can steer that towards the character. And then, of course, we exaggerate things sometimes, and, of course, they have to be hideous and scary. We went out to the park to work on the group movement, so it was working with the group behavior and a little bit of ideas of swarm intelligence. One thing happened when there's a car attack. And so I was inside the car, I was videotaping, and I had all the zombies attacking the car, like they were trying to climb in through the window, and apparently some guy in a truck came by and was a little concerned and started honking, and so apparently it was realistic enough attack to cause somebody concern.
Makeup trailer, baby. This is where it all starts.
We have 12 zombies. We have 10 zombies in full prosthetics and 2 background zombies.
I don't think so. I'm dead. Just look pretty.
A kind of came up with the idea that because New Orleans is below sea level and a lot of things get black mold here and there's a lot of dampness, and there would have been a lot of flooding in the past few years with all the natural disasters, that there would be a lot more of like a black dirt or like kind of black water coming out of them. So there's a lot of that incorporated into it.
We are shooting part of what we call the zombie apocalypse. We're making them kind of gross and slimy. Some of them are coming out of water, mucky grounds. My kind of idea is that some of the older zombies wouldn't be in caskets, so they'd just be in the ground, so they'd be more slimy and rotted, and hair would be more decayed, if you will. But some of the newer zombies, i.e. from like, let's say the 70s or the 80s, they would be in proper caskets, so they probably would have, their hairstyles would be a lot more contained.
Ryan Murphy is a gigantic fan of The Walking Dead, so I think he wanted to incorporate a little bit of zombies in. You know, he wanted to touch on that aspect and that genre a little bit, so we tried to come up with something a little bit different in color tones and everything. The zombies in particular are an amalgam of different zombies that we are paying homage to, which is always fun.
Dude, your prosthetics look awesome.
They're a little bit more of sloughing skin as opposed to rotted, and their clothes are very much like just decayed as opposed to like shredded up. We kind of went for more of like a tamped down look on the zombies.
He got the one part nobody wanted.
And then their contacts, so I wanted them to be like glow in the dark and or like really, really white. Unfortunately, they can't see anything. The actors can't see at all when they're wearing them. So a lot of times people are wearing one contact and we're digitally adding in maybe the other contact. But we do most of our stuff here practically, which is really fun.
Over here, you rotting pieces of shit! Come on!
This season's Halloween episode is pretty badass, like with the chainsawing of the zombies. That's really cool.
You get to see these girls become a team, and you get to see Zoe step up and really, really, really take control of her power, which is good because she really has been sucking.
So when I read it, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. It was a good turning point for Zoe to like toughen up and be the one to step up and take charge. I had 2 chainsaw rehearsals. I'm trying to swing this thing around. They're like, do it one-handed. I'm like, guys, I'm like the weakest link, remember? Zoe's the weakest link, she can't do it. So they lightened the chainsaw for me, thank God, and I was able to, you know, learn all the moves. It's fun, I think. It was definitely a big turning point in the Halloween episodes for Zoe when she got to be the hero for a minute and, you know, she really got to toughen up. Well, throughout the season, each witch seems to acquire like a second or third power. Nature. And it's this weird power that surged through her and she doesn't even know what's going on or what's happening. A lot of people die in that episode. I don't though, Zoe doesn't. Zoe saves the day.
I don't know what that was, but they got some real power in that witch house now.